Welcome everyone on today's seminar, Solar for Municipalities Benefits and How-To. And actually the lessons learned here are also benefiting nonprofits. So if you have a school, faith organization, nonprofit, or even commercial business, these lessons will apply to them also. So feel free to share the recording afterwards. I'd like to introduce Lisa Schulach. She's the Director of Commercial Programs at the Philadelphia Energy Authority. Lisa?
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to have you all here. We have a great lineup of speakers, and I just wanted to explain why the Philadelphia Energy Authority is here. Um, we have managed Solarize Philly for many years. We about a year ago expanded to be Solarize Greater Philadelphia for commercial entities, and then just this week, which is Solar Week, we are also serving the five-county area with our for residential for homeowners. So very excited about that. We partnered with the PA Solar Center, which has a Get Solar program. You're going to be hearing from Amelia shortly about that program. So we're just super excited to have you all, and I will pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm Bill Saby. I'm here with representing the Pennsylvania Sierra Club, and the chapter is the statewide organization, and the Southeast Pennsylvania group is called the Southeastern Group. So, as statewide, we have a clean energy advocacy team for clean energy called the Clean Energy Conservation Team. And we advocate for some of the environmental aspects that you see at the top. And there's a legislative tractor that our chapter director, legislative director maintains for us. Our meeting, for anyone that's interested in talking about Pennsylvania advocacy, is on the second Monday at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And we're one of 7 Pennsylvania conservation teams. And if you're interested in any of the others, you'll be receiving a follow-up email after this event that you can get more information. As I mentioned, there's a legislative director. We have political director, and as we get new information on bills as they are moving through the legislature, she periodically holds a webinar for us to hear about what we can do to help move those bills along. I wanted to step back for a moment on what's been happening in Southeast Pennsylvania. Back in 2017, 2016, actually, the Sierra Club National had started a program called Rate for 100% Clean Energy. And Chester County got involved right away. Downingtown, Westchester, and Phoenixville were kind of like competing against each other to be the first. But it asked municipalities to set targets to reach 100% clean energy goals, electricity by 2035, and heat and transportation by 2050. Since that 2017 period, we now have reached 48 municipalities in Pennsylvania that have pledged that aspirational goal. It's aspirational, it's a resolution. And then we've formed a regional group here in Greater Philadelphia called the Community Advocates for Greater Philadelphia to keep that program going. As a result of our efforts in reaching out to our local municipalities regionally, we've been able to ask municipality to create climate action plans and energy transition plans, and then some of the other actions that our municipalities have taken are highlighted here. This is just a summary of a few. There are others that are doing great work. Wasn't able to capture them all, but wanted to have these here for your reference. So I'm going to pass it over to Amelia Egan for the PA Solar Center.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Amelia. I'm the Assistant Director for the Pennsylvania Solar Center. We are a nonprofit. We're actually based in Pittsburgh, but we serve the Commonwealth. And as Lisa mentioned, we have a really great partnership out in Southeast Pennsylvania. We do some work in education and policy and advocacy, but our main program is the Get Solar program, which we will talk about a little bit throughout. But really wanted to talk today about why invest in solar. There are a couple of reasons why you might want to start thinking about solar for your municipality. The main one is that it's predictable and stable energy costs. Right now, we're seeing prices fluctuate quite variably and expecting that to continue for the next few years. So this is really about energy stability. And reducing your utility expenses. There are some tax incentives, or for tax exempt entities, there are direct pay and federal incentives as well as state incentives. But the federal incentives are expiring soon, which I'll speak about in a moment here. And again, it really helps with energy affordability as well as reducing climate impact. But most of what we'll be talking about from for today's perspective is from the financial point of view and kind of budget stability. Next slide, please. So Bill and I have been working together on a program through our Get Solar program called Solar Core. It's a volunteer mapping program. So we've gone through most of Southeast PA and taken a look at the municipalities in the 100 for Municipal Clean Energy Program. We did about 91 municipalities, and we mapped out the solar potential for the municipal buildings. So as you can see, we mapped about 126 sites of potential distributed solar and have some data about what the potential savings could be. So if you are interested in learning more about your specific municipality's solar before even getting into a program or going through the full feasibility process, there is a good chance that we've already mapped your building. So if you'd like to reach out to Bill or myself, we'd be happy to walk you through that. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the federal tax incentives, and I'm sure this is top of mind for a number of folks. Last summer, with the passing of the OBBB, the timeline did change. So if you are interested in trying to take advantage of the direct pay option, which is 30 to 40%, it's called investment tax credit, but direct pay option kind of acts like a retroactive grant. You would have to start your solar project as soon as possible. Really want to reiterate some immediacy here. You will have to have your project fully constructed and interconnected to the grid by December 31st, 2027, which sounds like it might be enough time, but between putting out either an RFP or public bid, getting proposals, and then there's a certain amount of time that you need for studies and permitting and interconnection, especially with the utilities. It is quite a quick timeline. So if you have a smaller municipal building and you're really interested in solar, now is the time to act. So in addition to the 30% direct pay, the base credit, all of Southeast PA and most of Southwest PA too, if you're outside of the 5-collar county, is eligible for an energy community bonus. So throughout Pennsylvania, most of our economy has been historically impacted by fossil fuels and coal, and so therefore there is an additional credit if you qualify based on your location. That is something that we would help you determine through the Get Solar process. But again, you have to act now in order to receive the credits by December 31st, 2027, or be implemented by then. Some of the state incentives, there's an Act 129 rebate, and then there are a couple of grant programs that we saw a couple questions about, so we can answer those in the Q&A process. But for now, next slide, please. As I mentioned, electricity prices are really rising, so I'm sure that's kind of top of mind for you all, especially as we're entering municipal budget season. As you can see, the utility prices, this is for price to compare. It's been rapidly increasing, but I did also want to call out that I know a lot of municipalities have third-party supply agreements. Those supply agreements have been changing. So on the figure on the right, you can see there's a dotted line. Everything above the dotted line is actually above price to compare, even within your third-party supply agreement. And most of that is because of pass-through charges. So if you are entering into a new supply agreement or need to enter into one in the next year, there's a lot new language about pass-through charges in there that really creates a variable rate for what you thought was kind of a less than market rate, stable price for supply. That's not quite true anymore. So some things we've been learning from municipalities around the state is that those prices are changing. So I would caution making sure that you're looking through that in great detail. Next slide, please. So for today, just to kind of give you an introduction to what you can expect a project to look like. From our point of view, we're really happy to help you understand the feasibility, but what does it mean for a municipality, and what are the processes to actually move forward? So in order to do this, we've asked a couple of folks to come on and really speak about their lived experience, and how their municipalities went through this process. So I'm happy to introduce Springfield Township, West Goshen Township, and West Vincent Township. But for today, we're going to start off with Sunana and Michael in Springfield Township in Montgomery County.
Hi, everyone. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Susie Ratzebong. I am the board president of our Board of Commissioners here in Springfield Township. But this is of Montgomery County. This is our township manager, Michael Taylor. And, we're going to go through a few talking points. Looks like we're going to go through all the kind of technical details. And then what I'm going to do is go through an overview of how we initiated this conversation, what the review of the feasibility models look like, what it looked like when we were reviewing financing strategies, and reveal to you our final outcomes. So, Mike, maybe you could share a little bit about what you see here.
Sure. My name is Mike Taylor. I'm the township manager in Springfield Township. And just point out a few things. Earlier today, we celebrated the completion of installation of our municipal campus solar project. And that project consists of 887 solar panels that were installed across our police administration building. And then across the street, where we happen to all be in one centralized location in the township, our public works facility. The panels are expected to generate about 390 kilowatts of electricity, and on an annual basis, 456,273 kilowatt hours. That's enough electricity to power approximately 89% of our municipal campus needs, which also include our free library of Springfield Township, which is in a separate building, but also on site through net metering. How did we do it? Actually, I should probably say, why did we not include solar panels on the library? Well, the library has a green roof. We constructed that building with that purposely to try and help out with stormwater management, and also helps to soften the building because it's sort of built into a hillside, and we didn't want people to have to look at a barren roof. So the cost of the system itself was $629,125. We'll get into how we selected our contractor and the process that we utilized for that purpose. The incentives, we are counting on a $188,738 federal investment tax credit. That'll be in a rebate form after we are operational. We also have the Section Act 129 PICO commercial solar incentive to the tune of just under $39,000. And the big one, we were fortunate to receive a $250,000 grant from the Montgomery County ModCo 2040 grant implementation program, which substantially brought our pricing down for a net of about $151,000 for our project, which you can't beat. Our projected 30-year savings are just under $1.8 million, and we utilize a 30-year electricity rate of 0.055445 kilowatt hours.
Yeah, and I should add that the payback on that is it's varied over the years, and you'll hear us talk about that. But at this point, we're talking about under 2 years to reap a full payback on that $150K. Not to mention that we no longer have to commit to any type of financing, and we're able to reap benefits there as well. So I thought about how would this be arranged to be helpful to you all, and I thought first let's talk about how did this get started? How did we actually make this happen from its inception? And that's pretty straightforward. And frankly, we have one of our environmental champions here in the room with us because, as you heard, we did do that ribbon cutting this morning. And the EAC was really the source as well as the constituency support. You know, the EAC here, the Environmental Advisory Commission, has a history of proposing, advocating, and providing research support for environmental initiatives. And ours in particular have really done a great job of recruiting motivated, research-focused constituents who are self-motivated, self-starting, and whose efforts, regardless of our adoption, are regularly supported by the board in general. A motivated constituent, I know she's well known across the state, Joy Berge, lives here, was a policy advocate in clean energy in her past career, now retired, has happened to be on the EAC. And when she saw that we made the Ready for 100 commitment in 2019, she said, hey, let's do that. So we are a Ready for 100 committed community. And then what happened is the opportunity to engage with the IRA, as you heard, the Inflation Reduction Act, and that there were going to be dollars available. So the EAC came together, put a report for us, and came to our board and said, hey, I think it's about time that we act on that Ready for 100. That was approximately the fall of 2023. We do have a few slides with the actual timeline, but I think we'll just talk through this point and then we can go to that timeline and see if we missed anything. Overall, by the way, there really were no real reactions from the public throughout our entire process, I would say. Perhaps we've had some individuals come in and ask, why do we even do it? And the economics just really make a lot of sense. I do think that's a policy decision surrounding our commitment to mitigating our environmental impact, particularly because the dollars do make sense. And who doesn't want to do the first thing if we can achieve the latter? So I think Mike can speak a bit to the review of the feasibility models. Really from our electeds' point of view, we want to do it, we're interested. Hey, how do we make it happen? So obviously we turn to our staff.
Yeah, so initially, and Susie alluded to this, the representative from the EAC, Joy, approached the Board of Commissioners at a budget meeting in October of 2023. And while the budget was not finalized by any means, it was a preliminary budget. It was pretty close to being done. And at that time, our annual municipal budget was around $18 to $19 million. And Joy came to us with a very worthwhile cause, but it was $1 million request. And it's real difficult to incorporate that in at that point in time. But the board recognized the value of it and suggested, hey, let's talk about this and let's get a game plan together. So we engaged a constituent, or well, actually he's a resident, but he's also an expert in solar, Ron Celentano, and we asked him to conduct a feasibility report for us. And he came up with a couple of different options for it. The board reviewed those options. One of those was an outright purchase of that direct ownership of the system. And the other was that we could investigate a power purchase agreement. Ron came back with an estimated cost of about $1,041,000 with a 9.2 year payback that incorporated the investment tax credit or direct pay rebate and the Act 129 incentives. So having received that information, our board was comfortable enough that they felt it was worthwhile to invest in a structural engineering study to make sure that our roof systems could support the the ballasted solar panels. So we engaged a structural engineer later that year to try and help us out with that. And the report came back that we had the ability to do that. So that put us to a next point with, okay, how do we get this off the ground? We do a lot of projects locally, but most of those projects are run through either our township engineer or public works department staff. But we certainly were not, educated enough or experienced enough to put together a solar project. Joy, again, stepped in and referred us to the Shared Energy Manager program from the Department of Environmental Protection. And so we applied for the technical assistance grant from that program. We were fortunate enough to be accepted into the program. and we were assigned a company called Wilson Energy Services, who really helped us take this project off the ground. Without their help, I feel like we would have been spinning our wheels. But they came in and they took a look at Ron's initial study, thought that it was a very accurate and very reasonable project. And they helped us out with an RFP that we treated just like a bid. The bid basically was put out in a very general specification so that we could leverage the expertise of the folks who do this every day, and they could give us the latest technology, the best layout, and the most cost-effective manner. So that process took place from roughly February through May of 2025. And if you want to switch to the next slide, we ultimately put that project out to bid in June of 2025. We conducted a pre-bid meeting that attracted 9 potential bidders, some of which were very experienced in the area, some of which we'd never heard of. Then we opened up proposals in July, and much to our pleasure, the numbers came in significantly lower than what we had anticipated. I should also mention that when we put the RFP out, we put it out in 2 different ways. We encouraged the respondents to give us an option for a direct ownership. And then we also asked them for a power purchase agreement option. And they were all encouraged to respond in both ways. And then we had written into our specs that we reserve the right to determine how we wanted to award the project. When we got such favorable bids and responses back, we sort of discounted the power purchase agreement because it just started to add cost to it. And certainly it was behooved us to own the system outright, because we could take advantage of some of those savings right away. And then, leveraged with the rebates that were available, we took a project that was going to take us 9 years, give or take, to pay back to something significantly less. So in September of 2025, the Board of Commissioners awarded the project to our low bidder, which was Spots Brothers. They happened to be here today for $629,125, and we moved forward and made preparations for that. Approaching the December 2025, we were advised by our solar consultant that we may want to consider making a safe harbor payment just because of the uncertainties associated with that rebate, the federal rebate, and while we probably could have done as little as 5%, you never know whether there would be change orders somewhere down the road based on design, based on the utility company requirements. One of our fears was, we're going to need a new transformer. So the decision was made to make a 10% safe harbor payment, which we did to preserve those abilities. And then our project commenced with installation in May of 2026. And at the same time, we had also applied for earlier in the year and were awarded the Monco 2040 grant, which I referred to earlier, which was sort of a game changer in terms of reducing that payback, from down to as little as 2 years. Earlier today, as I mentioned, we celebrated the completion of the installation, and we're currently awaiting the permission to operate from PECO. We just received notice today that the Public Works building is scheduled for a meter switch out sometime in the next 2 weeks. So we're optimistic that they will be online very shortly. And the Police Administration building should be following suit. We had to make a couple of tweaks with our electrical drawings based on our inspection, but that should follow suit within the month.
Yeah, and I would just conclude by saying that really, I would say we were reticent at the 12 to 15-year payback period when we were talking about north of $1 million. And as the number started to come down, as the payback period decreased, 7 to 9 was digestible, particularly even without a rebate. We had to factor that in and decide, hey, if we're not going to get that, will we still do it before we went out to bid? And I think we had the appetite and said, you know what, 7 to 9, we'll take it. But as you see here, we went far above and beyond that by the benefit of a well-priced bid, probably by doing a really strong bidding process to give us all the options, because really there were a few complicated possibilities. That really allowed us to make these choices. And as Mike said, the most recent calculations, particularly with that 250K, a pretty big number, brings us down to less than 2 years for payback. I think as recently as last week, we were crunching the numbers. And so the how to pay for it was a pretty big deal. I think another piece that I can't recall if Mike just said, the design build rationale was pretty important. And then I'll end with the design build rationale because I think that would be the most helpful piece to fellow municipalities for the design build rationale.
Yeah, that was what I alluded to. The recommendation from Wilson as well as Ron was, we could pay an engineering firm to come in and design a very detailed solar panel system that lays out panels very specifically in certain locations and specifies certain products over others. But why spend that money and then I don't want to say fight with the contractor, but argue with the contractor over whether that's the best way to do it or not. Um, we put together a very broad spec for minimum production requirements and where we wanted the facilities to be located, and then allowed them the flexibility to propose the latest equipment, the best layout, and take advantage of their expertise. And in that way, they also had some ownership responsibilities of it. Not directly ownership, but like they were responsible for getting us through the design process and getting us through the approval process with the utility company and the electrical inspectors.
And once again, without that grant, that really was a turnkey for us to be able to access that technical bid preparation. I think that was critical. And again, you see the numbers here. Not to take for granted that pure dollars is to contribute, really assisted. And we were able to do that ribbon cutting this morning. We had our congressperson out, county individuals, representatives from the state legislature, top to bottom, soup to nuts, everyone participated, and we were able to launch as of today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susie and Mike. Well done project. Kudos for everything you've done at Springfield Township. I'd like to introduce Sean Walsh, a supervisor at West Goshen Township, for their solar journey.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Walsh. I'm a supervisor here in West Goshen Township. West Goshen Township is a second-class township in Chester County, and we are adjacent to the borough of Westchester. We have a municipal complex for the township. It's right by Route 202, and the facility includes several buildings, administration, police department, parks, and public works. And I'll talk to the specifics of our project in a moment. But here, this slide shows the key facts and numbers for our rooftop solar array installation, which is on our Public Works building. The Public Works building was the only rooftop practicable building for a solar panel array. The other buildings, they had the type of roof design or were significantly shaded or had other issues like substantial penetrations that made them unattractive for a project. Our final project installation here is rated at 261 kW. It consists of 468 panels split into 4 independent zones, each with its own inverter. The annual generation expected here in Southeast PA from this system is 312,000 kWh. The project installed cost was $527,000, which was offset by a $182,000 from a combination of 3 incentives. 2 were from PICO and a rebate from the federal investment tax credit, the direct pay option. And all of these have been received. So in the Q&A, if people have questions about that direct pay piece, I can share our pain and joy of managing it. The projected 30-year financial benefit is over $1 million from electricity supply cost savings and SREC income, and the average cost to the township of the electricity generated over the 30 years is expected to be 5.85 cents per kilowatt hour. The picture there, the photo shows the Public Works building. We have panels on 3 of the 4 roofs as you see them. It's The reason it's not shown on that other one is because that's a north-facing roof and does not get as much sunlight, and it was not as good a value to install panels there. So that's what's shown on the photo. Next slide, please, Bill. So it's easiest to tell the project story by walking through a timeline of events. And I think it's really important to note for people today that our timeline was driven by the typical sequence of project steps with a deliberative decision-making public process. Our schedule was not forced by the pressure of any deadline, expiration of the IRA tax credit. That was not an issue as we went through our particular series of decisions. So back in late 2022, early 23, the Board of Supervisors expressed support to the Township's Sustainability Advisory Committee for them to explore the potential for a rooftop solar project at the municipal complex. The SAC worked with an individual and a company called Solar Renewable Energy to evaluate the general feasibility of the rooftop solar project at the complex and what options might be feasible. By the end of Q1 23, it was determined that the only practical option for a rooftop system was the Public Works building, as I mentioned earlier. In Q2 2023, the system size was estimated by Solar Renewable Energy, and the calculated generation capability would be greater than the electric power demand for certain periods of the day. But while less than the overall demand for the account, net metering needed to be considered for the overall project. Over the summer of 2023, the Board of Supervisors made decisions at public meetings to self-fund the project cost and to use the normal bid process for a design-build fixed-price contract. To prepare the bid specifications and run the bid process, the board approved an engineering services agreement with the engineering provider for the township. This agreement included preparing a concept level design drawing showing power tie-ins and general equipment layout, developing general and electrical specification packages, and managing the execution of a contract bid process on pen bid. So comparing to the previous example of Springfield, again, we went with a design build. We did not pick panels. We did not do a layout of the panel design. We did not specify a system capability. But we did prepare the specific specification packages for our township and contracted with our engineering provider to do this pen bid process. By year end 23, the specs and the bid requirements were all ready to go. And in the first quarter of 24, we executed this pen bid process through the provider. The winning bidder for us was TerraSol Energies based in Chadds Ford. And during the second quarter of 24, we had to resolve some questions and make some decisions with them related to whether we were going to require made in America panels. The answer to that for us was no, because of the extended time it would have made in terms of the project having to wait for the capability and capacity to be available. It made sense for us to push on with the project and get some savings sooner rather than later. We also had to communicate with PECO on the net metering issue, and we had to manage TerraSol through some of the requirements of our responsible contractor ordinance, which was something they had not had experience of in dealing with other projects that they had managed. In the second half of 24, they performed the detailed system design work and the equipment procurement process. We did not want construction to start until the winter weather season was over, to avoid any problems with our truck traffic in and out of the Public Works building, and to reduce the safety risk of rooftop working in freezing conditions. So therefore, the project construction phase began the third week of March, and substantial completion was on June the 3rd of 2025. Our permission to operate was obtained from PECO 6 weeks later in July of last year. Next slide, please, Bill. So this slide, I'm not going to talk in detail about it. I'm sure a lot of these prompters here will be questions that people may have, and we'll see which ones are most important to people. But some key thoughts here are really around the upfront decisions that need to be made as you walk through this process of managing and executing a project. So I'm not going to go into them so we can get back on schedule a little bit. Bill, do you want to take it from here over to Kirk, I think, right?
Yes, thanks, Sean. That great project summary. Appreciate this. So I'd like to introduce Kirk Reinbold from West Vincent Township in Chester County, a clean energy advocate.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kirk Reinbold, and I'm actually came at this from a slightly different direction. Myself and several other volunteers with our township were asked by our Board of Supervisors about 6 years ago to develop a clean energy plan. Um, it took a few years to get together, and after about 3 years, our township, as well as three other townships, joined together and developed clean energy transition plans for all four of our townships. So this municipal solar array is really what fell out of the implementation phase of our planning. So I wish we had real nice fancy buildings, but we're a rural community. We're about a fourth the size of Springfield or West Goshen. So basically our campus is a farm. So our municipal building is to the bottom right, which is it's a combination of a 150-year-old historical building as well as some modern office space. On the far left with the yellow roof, that's the south-facing roof of our Public Works building. And really what it is a big, huge metal garage with about four different bays for equipment, plows, dump trucks, etc. So the best idea was to put it on the roof of that. And so when we began looking at this about 2 years ago, one of the issues that we came upon is that the roof is leaky. So that kind of stymied us for a while. So we looked at, but we were asked not to give up by our board. So we looked at other alternatives on the township park, which is right there to the left, as well as some other township properties that are a little bit over a mile away. And the idea was to use virtual net metering to be able to operate those. In the interim, maybe about 6 to 9 months ago, the township made a full decision to just fix the roof, put a brand new roof on it. And the roof actually cost more than the solar array, believe it or not. But that was done. And then we worked very closely with PA Solar Center, and they worked on helping us really define what that array would look like. So where we think we are now is that we could fit a 60.6 kilowatt array up on that roof. It's only about 125 panels. Annually, it should produce about 78,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. And that's going to provide about 60% of our total electric bill for campus operations. The estimated cost at the time was $154,000. And we were looking at both the federal investment tax credit of 30%, as well as the PICO Act 129, which will pay you for the amount of kilowatt hours produced within the first year of operation. With that, we discovered that our projected 30-year savings is about $250,000 over 30 years. And our electricity rate is very much lower, about 5.25 cents per kilowatt hour. And we actually compared that to what it would have been if we had not gone solar and just gone with what the regular price to compare is of that electricity and how that would be inflated over the years. So it would have been, or will be, in about on average 17 cents a year if we were looking over the entire 30 years, if we did not go forward with our solar. So our analysis actually also includes the 10% for the energy community bonus, because we actually started our project just after it was determined that Southeast Pennsylvania would qualify for an energy community. So we didn't include those in our calculations. And there's also a potential for us to get some made in America, or what they call domestic content discounts, but we are not clear yet. We have not found our contractor. Right now, this is out to bid. We expected in November or October, November, that we would have bids in hand. And our primary metric that we're looking at is the lowest dollar per kilowatt hour installed. So that gives significant leeway to the solar contractor to come up with alternative plans. The only thing that we did is that prior to July 4th of this year is we did a safe harbor purchase of inverters as well as other signal conditioners, so that would allow us a little bit more time to complete the project. Instead of the end of 2027, we are now given until the end of 2029, 2030. But as you can see from the previous two presentations, once you have the bid in hand, it does not take that long to get this thing up and running. So can I have the next slide, Bill? So our hope and expectation is that as it stands now, we believe that we get a 13-year payback with only the 30%. If we do qualify for energy community bonus, that kind of reduces our years of payback because we pay a little bit up front. Probably reduce it about a year to 2 years, be about 11 years, 12 years, 11 years payback. And then if we can get up to the 10% for our domestic bonus for all the electronics and the panels, then we may be able to get to a 10-year payoff. So that's really the hope. Our roof was replaced this past May. We actually started this, like I said, on July 4th by obtaining safe harbor. And we really just put this out for bid a couple of weeks ago. And we're expecting the bids in October. And by the end of November, we should have an award. And our expectation is that we should be in full operation by the fall or early winter of 2027. And as I said before, this was designed for only 60% of our total capacity. We may find some other areas where we might be able to put in some small solar panels and solar arrays on the side or in front of the building, which may allow us to increase that a little bit. But that's about it. Thank you, Bill.
Bill, you're muted.
Hey, happens to the best of us Zoomers. Thanks, Kurt, so much. Appreciate your project overview and hope you're the best in meeting all the goals here to make it by the end of next year. And as I mentioned in the chat, these lessons learned and the availability of this federal credit is available for nonprofits, faith organizations, schools, as well as municipalities and businesses. So any commercial entity can take advantage of that federal credit. So all the lessons discussed today, we focused on municipalities because they need a little bit more time to get this up and running, but we want to make sure that everybody appreciates that this is applicable to everyone that you know. So feel free to share the after event follow-up email with everyone you know. Since we don't have a lot of questions in the chat, how about we take live questions? If you could use the Zoom at the bottom of your menu, there should be a raised hand, and we'll take an order of raised hands. How's that? So the first raised hand I see, I think, is Ron Celentano. You want to add something, Ron?
Yeah, I just want to ask for both West Goshen and West Vincent. I noticed that the Act 129 PICO commercial incentive seemed to be almost half of what we think it should be. It's 10 cents a kWh for annual production, but the numbers look like they were running in like half, like maybe 5 cents. I just was curious about that.
Ron, I'll have to follow up with you on that. The number I got came from the township manager, so I'll have to understand what the basis is for it. But
Okay.
I will get back to you on it.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
curious.
Ron,
My understanding is that for Pico, it's they're actually calculating what the solar is actually offsetting and not the net metering total.
Right. And I think, I believe it was maybe the Westminster, if in fact you are virtual meter aggregation, you wouldn't get what goes off to another site. But, all right. Interesting.
Yeah, this Brett Riley here. I'm with the Pico Ways to Save program. So yeah, that's exactly right, Amelia. So it's anything that's directly offsetting the building load. Anything being net metered out wouldn't be considered in that incentive. So I know the West Goshen one, we helped pay that out last year. And then the other two, we're kind of waiting until they're, receive PTO and completed. So we can, if you have any questions, we could definitely take a look at that. And just want to call out, glad to see it's all promoted and helping everybody out. Just, a reminder that, we have our own application process. So just make sure your contractors get in touch with our team. I can, put my email in the chat right after this and make sure, you guys are getting those incentives.
And before I go to, thank you both. Before I go to Lawrence, Sean, I was curious, what's the percentage of electricity usage that it'll cover for your township?
So we're about 20%. We're quite a big township. We have several buildings and we have different accounts even at the complex. So this actually is about 20% of the overall complex power requirement, maybe a little higher, maybe 22, 23. But the Public Works building has its own account and its own meter. And again, for that particular location, it's a net metered situation. So we consume what we can when there are times when we produce more than we need. So that's when we net meter back.
Thanks. Lawrence.
Yes, thanks. Someone mentioned virtual net metering. What is that?
Yeah, I can answer that. So in Pennsylvania, we have both net metering and virtual net metering aggregation. So net metering is essentially whenever your utility account almost acts like a bank account and you're looking at it on an annual basis. So say that you want to offset 100% of your building's consumption, you would actually produce a system or build a system that overproduces in the summer and you build up credits. And then in the winter, when you're not producing as much, you draw down on those credits. So that's net metering. And then virtual net metering aggregation is the idea that you can build a solar array within 2 miles of the meter that you want to offset. So this works really well for rural municipalities and schools a lot of the time. So for example, if you have a field that's not really being used and you don't have a 25-year plan for it, you could build a solar array there. And as long as the meter at that solar array is in the same name as the meter on the municipal building, and it's in 2 miles as the crow flies, you can use that solar to offset your municipal building.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Lawrence. A question for our panelists. Had you considered or might you consider in the future any additional space within your township, even if it's not roof? Had you thought about whether ground mount would it all be feasible for any of your locations?
Yeah, we actually looked at 4 or 5 different options. The roof mount that it's going to be at was the only roof mount. The rest of them were all ground mount, which is slightly higher in expense because you have to pay for a much larger rack system. We looked at places as far as 1.5 miles away. We looked at several places right there at Evans Park, the farthest being maybe around 1,000 feet away from the Public Works building. But certainly the idea there is we wanted to locate those at least close to a utility pole, which they were not always. And so we looked at those, and they were actually quite larger, and they could have easily provided 100% of our electricity demand. But when the roof was finished, that seemed to be the ideal place to do it. And that's kind of where the Board of Supervisors felt the most comfort.
John or Susie, did you guys think about any other options?
We did not. We focused on the municipal campus. This is where our highest energy users are. And in Springfield, unlike some of the other folks on the call, we don't have a whole lot of undeveloped land or spaces where we could place these facilities, unless you want to start talking about parklands and those types of places. So we really focused on these buildings in particular.
Can I speak to that parking lot question?
My answer would be the same as just repeating what Mike just said. We didn't have a lot of township land that was not utilized, and we did not want to encroach on any of our parks.
I'll also add, because there's a question in the chat that Susie just pointed out to me. Did we consider placing them in parking lots? We have a parking obligation that we had to satisfy and a practical need for all of our facilities. We did look into putting a canopy very early on for the police vehicles to sort of the justification there to protect the police vehicles from the weather, but also to pick up some additional space for the solar panels. But the cost of the canopy would have exceeded the cost, or the payback for those panels to go on there. So we eliminated that, especially since we had enough roof area to satisfy our needs.
Yeah, the cost of parking canopies, because of the steel that's needed to support the structure, the estimates I've heard is that they're at least 40% more expensive than a traditional rooftop solar system. So,
Thank you. Kip, did you still have a question?
Yeah, I would just argue back on that just a little bit. It might not be as beneficial, but it ties into the whole system. You've got everything set up right there, and it sends a message to the community about how great solar is. So, because everybody notices when they are parking under a panel, it creates conversation all the time with the tenants of the building, with the employees. So I think there's a real benefit, even though it is not as beneficial, to also take advantage of a nearby parking lot.
Thank you. And there was a question about whether these credits are available across the state. It's actually a national federal credit, and then you'd have to consider your local utility, what their Act 129 credit would be, and whether you can get any grants or assistance from your county. But all of this message is applicable to everyone in Pennsylvania and across the United States. As Amelia mentioned, the PA Solar Center facilitates solar development for everyone across Pennsylvania. So you have any entities that want to consider solar to take a look at their website to get started. And Amelia, were there any submitted questions that you wanted to raise?
yeah, there were. Thank you. So there were a couple questions about grants that are available right now. So in addition to the Act 129 rebate that will be, available for a while now, again, the federal incentives will be expiring soon. So you will probably need to think about a project without those. However, there is the local share account, which is a state grant up to $1 million. And we know a number of projects throughout the state, municipal projects and fire halls and things like that, that have received a $1 million grant for a solar project through the local share account. I believe that that application is due sometime in the fall. And then the other one that's top of mind, not necessarily municipal, but the Solar for Schools grant is a really great opportunity for school districts, and the Get Solar program, the PA Solar Center, is a qualified assessor for that. If you know of any schools that are interested in doing an application. If anyone here is in Southwest PA, there is the Powered and Prepared grant for solar plus storage right now. But as far as statewide, those are the two that I'm currently aware of. But we do also have relationships with a few financing agencies. And I know in partnership with PEA, PGCC is a really great financing opportunity right now. Lisa, I'm not sure if you'd like to speak to that at all.
Yeah, sure. And I'll put a link in the chat. PGCC, which is the Green Bank affiliate of my organization, has some loan opportunities now that are specifically geared towards solar. And one of the things that might be helpful for some folks on this call is what we're calling a bridge loan. So there's some of those pretty significant federal tax incentives. You have to and pay PICO, you have to pay your developer first, and then you get money back. So if that is a challenge, the cash flow for that, there's a really good solution for that. It's solar express loan. So I'll share some information in the chat around that as well. And while I'm speaking, my colleague Amy asked a question she knows the answer to, but I'm going to answer it, which is, are there incentives for batteries? And definitely the investment tax credit is not expiring anytime soon. It's expiring not until the early 2030s. It was part of the Inflation Reduction Act, but in the BBB Act of last year, while it shortened the solar and wind tax credits, it left the battery tax credit and the geothermal tax credits to complete the life of them, which is, I think it's 2033, but so that's the same 20, 30, or I'm sorry, 30, 40, or 50%, depending on if you're able to get domestic content and or energy communities bonus.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, the Get Solar program, we are kind of morphing into Get Resilient, as we like to call it, which would include battery modeling. So our team would be able to help with a feasibility study for solar plus storage.
And Amelia, you want to close out with some actions to ask the group to consider?
Yeah, great.
Then we'll come back for a couple of questions afterwards, just in case. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so again, with the Get Solar process, both in throughout the state, but particularly in partnership with the Philadelphia Energy Authority. If you'd like to enter the program, Lisa's put the link in the chat, but essentially we would start with the solar feasibility study. We can help, as Kirk mentioned, look at a couple different opportunities, whether it's ground mount, rooftop. We can look at carports, but again, they're pretty expensive, but for some urban areas, that's a really great opportunity. So we'll kind of get an analysis of all of the solar opportunity, what you're currently paying for electricity, what your 30-year projections would be, what you can offset, and then that is a 25-year cash flow analysis that is pretty holistic and includes operations and maintenance. So you have a really good snapshot of what the financials of the project will look like. And we also help with the financial navigation. So whether it is the federal incentives, state incentives, grants, financing, we can help connect you with a really good financial capital stack. And if all of that looks good, we do help support the procurement process. So we've heard today that there are kind of options for both RFPs and public bids. Our team is familiar with doing both. We have an RFP packet where we can fully manage it on your behalf, or we can help support a public bid process and help you manage that process and answer some of the technical questions, as well as advertise it to developers. And then we also help on the back end, kind of doing an apples to apples comparison, attending board meetings virtually, making sure that everyone is well educated and feels as though you're making a good decision for a capital investment for the long-term stability of your financial obligations as a municipality. And then we also help with some of the communications on the back end. So, and if anybody just has a general solar question, I'll add my email into the chat. Feel free to email me. But Bill, if you could please go to the next slide. Yeah, so there's an intake form both on our website and on the website for PEA that Lisa shared. If you are interested, you can just fill out a couple of basic questions. It's mostly, where are you located, who's the point of contact, and what kind of interest array are you interested in? Have you ever spoken to developers before? Things like that. And then our team will contact you back, get an intake call, help you understand the process, and then we'll keep moving from there.
Thank you, Amelia. And we'll just take a couple more questions, but I wanted to let you know that when you receive the deck, you'll have our emails if you want to follow up with any questions that you'd like to ask. And just in case anyone needs to leave at 1 o'clock, feel free and you'll get the recording afterwards. Just wanted to see if there are any remaining questions. Feel free to raise your hand. We'll take a couple just in case. So there's anybody come
Bill,
up
there's a
with
question from Michael Leader. What is the typical Pico interconnect timeline? And I think there's a number of people on this call who could answer that and probably say it isn't typical. Ron, do you want to give a initial response to that?
Yeah, that is the correct answer. It's not typical. I will say, case in point, in our Springfield project here, it has passed electrical inspection. We have the meter pans already in place. Everything's ready to go. And we just heard it might be about a 2-week turnaround before Pico will give permission to operate. I'd say after electrical inspection and everything's kind of in play, it might be more like could be 2, 4, 6, even 6 weeks. You heard some really horror stories. It could be a really long extension, but I'd say maybe sort of within a month after electrical inspection approval.
Yeah, our experience at West Goshen, this was the summer of last year, was a 6-week wait from completion through to permission to operate.
Thank you. Lisa, maybe you can help with this question. Amelia had to leave. There's a question about the application timeline. How long does it usually take for each step in the GET process?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to take that. It's a pretty rapid process. I think once you submit you respond and you complete the inquiry form, which gives the solar center basic information. You typically will have an intake meeting within 1 to 2 weeks, and then you need to supply Pico bills, some information about the age of your roof, things like that, and then the feasibility study itself typically takes them 2 weeks to prepare, and then it becomes very variable in terms of how long the client organization takes to decide how they want to proceed, what kind of financing options they have, if they are ready to move to procurement. And the procurement depends on the organization's like their own procurement rules. Municipality might have different ways to do that than a private business would, but you're talking several months from beginning to end, most likely.
And once you reach that end, is that end considered where the RFP gets issued and we still need a time return for that before we sign a contract with our vendor?
Yes. So the RFP, I'm not exactly sure about this. I think it's usually out there for like 3 to 4 weeks to get responses. But I have seen it happen more rapidly than that with projects that need a very quick turnaround. And a critical piece that the Pennsylvania Solar Center does is help evaluate the responses. And they're going to look at, what are your criteria? Is cost the most important? Are there other values that are important to you? And then basically do what they call an apples to apples comparison. And then that's something they'll, put a spreadsheet together and you can, then bring it to your decision makers. And then contracting also really varies, depends on, the type of organization and what your contracting needs are. But that could be also really, there's no typical contracting amount of time, just like there isn't for interconnection.
Thank you. And are there any last words of brief words of encouragement from our three townships that want to put any incentives out there to help others feel courageous?
One point I would like to make is, even if some of these incentives are putting people off in terms of their deadlines and that we can't get there from here, I mean, you it's still absolutely worthwhile moving through in a feasibility study, developing a business case, because these paybacks are getting less and less as electricity rates go up. So there is, even with less incentives, there is still a good business case to be made for many projects. So absolutely push on and do your evaluations of what's feasible. And I think you'll be surprised by the strength of some of the business cases.
Great words of support. Thanks, Sean. Um, any other last comments?
And I would just echo the same and say, I would say we're an example of folks who sort of took our time through that research period, but as soon as the go button was pressed, it really went along speedily. I just quickly looked 15 to 18 months for us to get there. And although I think we were being somewhat conservative by saying, oh, 12 to 15-year payback, yikes, let's take a pause, $1 million spend. But realistically, on a 30-year financing structure, that's still a great return. To his point that the business case is strong, regardless of the rebates that you might be able to access, which, figuring out these extra dollars really came after the fact. And, we've gotten that benefit as recently as just this spring. That 250K number is what was able to give us that leg up on some of the return. Again, we've reduced it by 76% of the initial bid price now for our taxpayers. But that took some time for us to build that out. But because we had everything built out, we were able to access some of those grants. And so chicken or egg is always the challenge. But I'd say get out there and put that egg together.
Yeah, just to add, Bill, and everyone, since I'm not a township employee or township staff, cost was not the number one thing for me. As I said, we started this with an energy transition plan, and this solar came out of that. It was a result of that. But we still want to reduce our carbon emissions for the next 30 years. So we are going to look or use this municipal solar as kind of a teaching element so that we can continue to teach our residents and our businesses ways to save money as well as help reduce emissions. So it's kind of, we win on two things there.
Thank you. Great messages all. Really want to thank our speaker team, Mike and Susie from Springfield Township, Sean Walsh from West Goshen, and Kirk from West Vincent. You'll be receiving a follow-up in the next few days with the slides and a recording and any resources we can think to share with you. I'd also like to thank Lisa and her team at Philadelphia Energy Agent Authority, and Amelia, who had to leave early, for facilitating for PA Solar Center. Again, thank you so much. We're increasing clean energy with each solar implementation we can bring into Pennsylvania. So we appreciate all your support and interest in continuing that upward trajectory and advocating for clean energy policy at the state level. So glad to have you part of our interests. And thanks again, and appreciate everybody's time, and have a great day.